In this episode of the David Watson podcast, I spoke with Ewan Mortimer, and great chap, really nice young guy, and he is hopefully going to become one of the youngest Salisbury City councillors ever. And it was fascinating to chat with him about why he loves Salisbury so much, why he's proud of his city, and what it is he's hoping to do with the local community. And he also had a great and interesting perspective on currently being a student in these COVID pandemic lockdown times. I really enjoyed talking to him, and I hope you do too. Hello, Ewan. Welcome to the David Watson podcast. How are you?
Hi, David. I'm all right, thank you.
Good.
How are you?
I'm well. And just like we were discussing, the weather and it's nice and sunny, but the wind's a bit chilly for me. So
Yeah. I mean, I've only just got up, so I haven't had the time to go outside yet.
we're going to avoid any student stereotypes there. With I've just got up.
Oh,
And-
I mean,
We'll pretend for the benefit of the
stereotype.
podcast it's 7 o'clock in the morning, not 5
Yeah.
past 1 in the afternoon. So
I mean, it is the holidays as well, so
that's a good
it's not
point.
like
Actually,
yes.
no, I stand corrected. You're right. It's Easter holidays, isn't it? So you actually at halls of residence now?
No. I'm in second year, so I've done my time in halls.
So I never went to university, so I don't know what any of that means.
Oh, okay.
So what? You're now in student accommodation somewhere?
Yeah. So no, I'm renting private accommodation, so I'm just in a house with four other people, although two of them aren't here at the
Okay,
moment. So it's a bit lonely, but it's all right.
yeah. And you're doing? I take it you're doing online lessons, aren't you? You were saying on the phone. Lockdown.
Yeah. I mean, I think in the first term, when you know, when we weren't actually in lockdown, I went onto campus maybe 3 times
Oh, what?
for classes, but it was quite strange because we had to wear masks and everyone was socially distanced. But yeah, apart from that, that's it. It's all been online, so I haven't met any of my classmates this year or my tutors, which is quite strange.
Yeah. So what is the feeling amongst your friends with the whole wearing masks, not wearing masks, and all of that?
Wearing masks? I mean, I'll be honest, I don't really think it comes up in conversation a lot. I don't, I mean, we sometimes, we'll go to the shops and we'll occasionally see people, they'll be wearing it so that it's not covering their nose.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know, it's not really kind of a difficulty to us. We've just kind of gone along with it, I suppose. But you notice people sometimes, not wearing masks, and it does feel a bit off. Oh, actually, I worked during first term, just like in a shop, and occasionally I had to wear a mask the entire time, and I suppose I kind of got conditioned that if you were in a shop, you had
Yeah.
to wear a mask. So I was almost on the edge at times when people came in without masks. It's quite strange how all this has happened within 1 year that we.
I know. I know. I
Yeah.
mean, I always try to be aware of any potential echo chamber that I might find myself in.
Mm.
So I always like to ask people, like, what are your feelings? But I like your fact. You're right. We've kind of become conditioned to where we are. But if you'd have said to me 18 months ago, I'd never have believed this would have happened. I would never have believed the government would have got away with it. I really wouldn't have.
No.
You know what I mean? And I,
Well, I
and
mean,
that-
go on. Sorry.
I was going to say, and I'm not knocking any government, because I think any criticism only comes in hindsight, which I always think is unfair criticism. But yeah, I just would not have believed that everybody would have just gone, okay, yeah, we're putting on masks. I'm never going out and I'm not going to go and see people. I'd have been like, no, not us. We won't have it. And the whole world did it. So what do I know about human nature?
Well, I mean, I still, I'll be honest, I'm not really sure when masks first came about, because they almost seem like they've been around forever now.
Yeah.
It was only really mandated in the summer that you had to wear masks in shops, and I don't know, it seems almost, my memory of it is fuzzy. It doesn't
Yeah.
seem like, it was, it seems like it's been, aeons ago that masks have been around, but I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean, I work in care, so I have to wear PPE
mm,
anyway. So it wasn't such a culture shock that we're suddenly wearing masks all the time because, oh,
yeah,
right, I wear gloves, aprons, and all that anyway. So it's just like, oh, right, okay, yeah. Well, but it was just, like I said, I found it hard to believe just how easily the whole world just decided, okay, I won't go to work. I won't step outside my
yeah,
house.
yeah.
And there hasn't really been huge challenges to it, you know,
No,
you know. I've
I mean,
honestly thought it'd only happen if there was like dead bodies piling up in the street, like it was 1600s plague or something.
well, I
You know.
mean, you say that, but then in Brazil, it almost is. I mean, I don't know if you've seen pictures of
No,
Brazil during the height of it. They had, they were on the verge of having mass graves at some point.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
It's, I mean, it I mean, when it first, when the virus first kind of like made its way into England, my friends and I were kind of saying, we were of that kind of like in the denial stage. We were like, oh, it won't affect us. Everything will be, it'll be a couple of weeks. Everything will be fine. But I mean, then, I mean, we're here now, and you see, these images across the world, and it's frightening. Um, you know. Um, but what frightens me a lot more is how, you know, when it is over, well, if it's ever over, because obviously events like these, you're always, they're going to have effects down the line for years to come. It's going to change the way we do things, probably for the rest of our lives. And, you can either go with the change, or you can, kind of get swept away by it. It's definitely unnerving.
Yeah, it's an interesting time, which kind of in a weird way can lead us up to one of the reasons you were introduced to me as somebody to talk on the podcast because you're campaigning to become a Salisbury City Councillor.
Yes.
Right.
Getting to the topic at hand.
It is.
Um,
Can I just ask you to do a very quick favour? Could you just pull your curtains? Because the sun is
is it?
directly behind you.
Yeah, sure.
Is that all right?
That's absolutely fine. I mean, it won't affect podcast listeners, I'm sure.
No, it's just it, and I don't bother people on YouTube. It's just when I'm talking to you, every now and again, because you and I sort of fidget, we both do it, right?
Mm.
Your head sort of moves and it disappears, and all I've got is this body and this headless shape, and it looks like the sun is talking to me.
I don't. Is it too dark now?
No, I'll be fine.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's, like you say, most people listen to this on some like Spotify or Podbean.
Right.
I don't have the grand numbers on YouTube as much as I'd like to. So yeah, how did you like the thing that fascinates me? Just for the benefit of people at home, how old are you?
I'm 20,
You're 20.
so I will be 21 come July.
July.
But yeah.
So just for what fascinates me, and this is with anyone, is what on earth made like was there a day when you thought, yep, I want to do something different. I think I'm going to become a local councillor for my local city.
I mean, I don't actually think it was. I wasn't the one who decided, really. At the start of January, I decided to join the local Conservative Party, and I think it was maybe in February, just a few months in, I got an email saying that they were looking for local councillors, and I suppose I've always wanted to go into politics, I think, and I kind of thought to myself, well, you know, part of me was a bit, oh, will I have the time? Because obviously, I'd be at university for a lot of the time. I'd want to go on and get a career. But equally at the same time, I mean, you can spend you can spend your time worrying about these things, or you can kind of, you know, do them and see where they take you. So partly why I've decided to run, um, to, experience local politics, is because I want to see maybe where that path takes me. I mean, I've always loved Salisbury. This is one of the great things about moving away to university is, especially in a cathedral city, you get to compare your local city to your home city. So, I mean, the cathedral at Exeter is nice, but it doesn't really compare to
Did you sit there?
Salisbury.
Yeah, do you sit there saying my city's better than your city? My
Oh no,
cathedral's better than your cathedral.
yeah, definitely. But you you get into a lot of arguments with other people about where they're from, whose city is best. And I suppose, even so by doing that, I kind of, I find these arguments, and like, well, Salisbury has, great history, a lovely cathedral. Um, it's a great place. There's a lot of greenery. I mean, I live in Laverstock,
Yep.
so I've kind of got the perfect situation of being able to go into the hills, into the rural countryside, um, but equally being very close to right next to the town.
Yeah,
So
Laverstock is a
I,
beautiful part of Salisbury.
oh no, definitely. Um, so I've got the best of both worlds, and it's great that, you know, I mean, I couldn't really see myself growing up in another city. It's almost like the perfect place to grow up because you have these green spaces, these gardens, it's kind of like that idyllic setting, which I will say to my friends is, if you're sitting on kind of like sitting on a field in the summer, the sun's setting, you're just chilling with your friends, and it's a good vibe. I
Yeah, no, I
don't really
agree.
know how else to put it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Weirdly, it reminds me. I have a friend called Lewis Brooks. Shout out to Brooksy, and he does a lot of drum and bass MCing and stuff like that. And
Oh
he
yeah.
was being interviewed at a festival where he was playing, and they were like, and did a big shout out to Salisbury. Do you know what I mean? So this is like a big London drum and bass podcast type interview. This guy's just walking around the drum and bass festival, and Brooksy's just come off the stage or something, and he's like, "No, shout out to Salisbury, man." He said, "I love my hometown. I love the cathedral. I love everything about it." And I love that sense of pride that people have, because although I'm from the area, like you, I moved away for a bit. I lived in London for a while, came back, sort of thing. And one of the things as soon as I came back, I was just like, Salisbury's gorgeous. It is a beautiful place to live. And I love that sense of pride you have, that that actually all your friends, that you'll actually sit down and argue about who has the best city. I love that,
Oh yeah.
people taking pride in where they come from.
No, it's definitely. I don't know. It seems almost very. It's probably. I mean, it's probably true for everyone, but it seems like a very English thing to do. To big up your city and
I
and
think
stuff.
I think a lot of people can, if you're sort of there's always town rivalries wherever you go around the world. To do what I mean. But has anyone like had like a top trump card that you can't beat? Do you know what I mean? Like they pulled something out of the bag, and you're like, okay, no, that makes your town where you're from
I
special.
mean, if I take Exeter as an example, the biggest, the biggest killer of any, I suppose Salisbury hype is the fact that we only have one nightclub. I mean, especially amongst young people.
That's a really good Salisbury, the only place in the country where
You
you
know,
can't go out at night.
I mean, if you don't like the chapel, you're pretty much stuffed for a night.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, so as long as it comes up as we're just talking about historical features in a 10-mile radius, so you can pull in Stonehenge, Old Sarum, do you know what I mean? You're fine. But as soon as they go into
Yeah,
nightlife, you're like, I'll hand this over to someone else.
yeah. Yeah, no, Exeter has many, so I might have to give that point to Exeter.
Okay. So we're going to concede a point to Exeter there. Shout out to Exeter Knife Life.
Well, I mean, nightlife, it's more about, the good times with friends and memories that you make.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that pretty much encapsulates it all, isn't it? It's about the memories you can make with friends. That's everything about nightlife.
Actually, no. To be fair, that's one thing I'll say about Salisbury. If you go on a night out, if you go into any pub, I guarantee you will see people you know, and you will go over to. Obviously not at the moment, but you will go over and have a chat with them.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Also, do you know what I mean? It is actually that I don't drink that much these days, but actually I remember, yeah, when I was in Salisbury back in the day, which was a long time. You know, you're talking late nineties. That was true. You didn't have to. I didn't ever have to arrange to meet anybody. I could just go into a pub. There'd be somebody I knew, and there'd be somebody in the next pub as well. You know, that was the great thing about it.
So you're not in Salisbury at the moment?
No, no, I
Sorry,
live in
just
Amesbury.
confused. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I'm Amesbury, but it's kind of, you know, I consider myself a Salisbury boy, although
Mm.
I've never actually lived in Salisbury, but you know, the Salisbury
Like the
is,
kind of surrounding area.
yeah, that's what I mean. It's and it comes from originally my dad was in the army, so I've lived in lots of places. But
Yeah.
we kind of settled in this area while I was still young, and Salisbury's always been kind of, I mean, because Amesbury when I first moved here wasn't, when I was trying to think, I moved here when I was about 13, 14. Amesbury was a tiny town. You know, it's
Yeah.
about 5 times bigger than it was when I first moved here with all the new housing estates. But Salisbury, especially as I got older, and it started when I moved away and come back, Salisbury for me has always kind of been where I define as, you know, I'm from the Salisbury area sort of thing, because
Yeah. Yeah.
it's such a pivotal place. And like you, I just love Salisbury. I think it's a great city.
Well, I mean, I was actually born in Watford, but I moved to Salisbury when I was 9 months old, so I can't really say that Watford had any defining
I used to work in
role in
Watford.
my upbringing. Oh, really?
I worked in North Watford for a couple of years for a
Oh,
BMW dealership.
fantastic.
Yeah, small world.
I mean, most people know it for the Warner Bros. Studios.
Yeah, yeah. You had
Yeah,
Pinewood Studios nearby,
yeah, yeah.
in Elstree. Elstree, I think it was. Because I used to work in a BMW dealership, so we used to get a lot of the chauffeurs' cars coming in.
Oh, fantastic. Amazing.
Never any of the celebrities, but I met quite a few chauffeurs,
No.
and they never spoke. They never said anything out of turn to anyone. Do you know what I mean?
So kind of, second-hand connections to celebrities
Yeah,
then.
yeah, yeah. That's literally it. There's a few. The interesting one is there were two types of chauffeurs. There were chauffeurs that were just drivers, and there were chauffeurs who were security. And some of them were serious people. Do you know what I mean?
Did they kind of wear the sunglasses and the black
They
suits?
didn't wear the sunglasses. They did wear black suits. A lot of them did wear, but some of them were just being themselves were intimidating. Do you know what I mean? They just had
Yeah,
that
yeah.
vibe of, not only do you not want to mess with me, I've already killed 3 people this year. Do you know what I mean? Some of them were just they were
I mean,
so nice and polite, but they just had this
yeah,
vibe,
yeah.
and you was like, I don't know about
I
that.
mean, I hope that's not the
Yeah, yeah,
case.
but you know, it was yeah, it wasn't just their size, and like I said, some of the chauffeurs were just more taxi friendly type drivers.
Mm.
Um, Whereas you get the odd driver come in, and not only did he look like a brick wall, they just had a presence to them, and you just like, oh God, I hope this car goes okay. And you'd look at the paper, oh thank God, it's just an oil service. It's not complicated. We can't screw this up.
Yeah.
You know. So anyway, this is like our phone conversation the other day. It was one thing, then another, then another.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
know.
so I started the question that got us up to Watford somehow. Of who was it who said to you to become a Salisbury City Councillor?
Oh, no. I don't. I think it was an automated email
Yeah,
that
that's what.
told me to. Oh, do you mean who who
Well, so the question was
actually told me,
what
or kind
happened? What
of?
was the day? You know, and
Yeah.
you started talking about. You did start talking about the email. That's where it started
Mm.
from, and somehow that led us off to Watford.
But what you mean when I made the decision
Yeah, how did that come
myself?
about?
I think part of it. I mean, like I said, I wanted to go into politics. So again, it's that it's the idea that it's more why, I love my city, so why shouldn't I run? As opposed to why should I run? Um, so I mean, one thing that for me, which I actually said in my interview, um, I mean, I've never really been engaged in local politics, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Um, I've never really had any, experiences in talking to local councillors or, doing any kind of events put on by local councillors. And I mean, if you look at, I mean, I watched this, it's probably not realistic, but I watched this show, called Parks and Recreation, which kind of shows American city politics.
Yeah.
And part of me I kind of felt like I wish I wish I had had greater kind of, you know, a better introduction from a young age into city politics, kind of see, to kind of be shown the city, see what's going on, even if it's just a couple of events. So
Yeah.
I felt to myself, well, if I think that maybe there's more to be done here, I should run so that I can then put those plans in place for people might, for so
Yeah.
that people growing up can have those experiences which maybe I didn't have. Um, yeah, I think that's it really.
But I like something you said that is, it's not a question of why shouldn't I run, but not why am I running, but it's my city, so why shouldn't I run?
Mm.
It's the opposite. It's more like an obligation in return for the city.
Well, I don't, not so much, I don't think an obligation, but it's more that when you look at the council in Salisbury, I mean, I think my friend told me that were I to be elected, I would be the youngest person on the council. Um, I mean, in many ways, it's not my ideas which matter. It's more who I want to represent which matters. So,
Yeah.
what I say is, I want to be a voice for young people in the council. Um, Although I do think that the council has actually, particularly on climate change, has made good progress. Um, in many ways, just being that kind of that member of the council who people my age will have something in common with. So particularly, I mean, in the area I'm supposed to represent, there's Wiltshire College, Salisbury Sixth Form, Godolphin, and a lot of primary schools. But particularly for those kind of, like the colleges and sixth forms,
Yeah.
those are people my age, and they're going to be going to university maybe next year or going to do apprenticeships and jobs. And these are these are issues and problems I have to deal with. I mean, I'm supposed to be doing a work placement next year,
Yeah.
and I still haven't got any concrete leads on jobs. So, people my age were all kind of facing the same issues, and unless someone at least, stands up and says, tries to get involved in local city government to try and change things to, or at least bring these issues to light, not much is going to be done. So in that way, it's more that, it's not really an obligation. It's that if I want to see change for myself, I have to stand up and do it.
What? Yeah, 100%. I completely agree, and that's what fascinates me is because there's a few things. Is one, and this is no disrespect to any current, previous, or serving Salisbury City Councillor or any councillors around the country, but most of them will be old enough to either be your dad or your granddad or grandma, or grandparent. Do you know what I mean? Or mum or something. They will be of parent age or grandparent age. And more than ever, it's more important that we get people, if not so much involved in politics, but involved in their communities. And it's just, I don't care how efficient I could be at being a counsellor. I can't understand what your issues are. I mean, I'm more than twice your age. I cannot. You and I can sit down and discuss them. I can try and help you. I can try and be sympathetic. I can demonstrate empathy. I'll be brilliant at that. But it's just not possible for me to understand. About trying to get a work placement, why that matters, why that's important. It's because that's behind me. It's not in front of me. And I just for so many of those reasons, like just the catchment area that you're going to be in is with the academy, the colleges. It just I just honestly I'm having trouble trying to articulate exactly why I think it's such a good idea that you're running for this and that you're doing this, because
that's always the way, isn't it? Like, on a talk podcast, you can never actually articulate what you want to say, and it always gets a bit awkward.
But that's what's great about long form podcasts. You can actually just sort of
you can take your time.
Yeah, but because there's a huge catchment area of people from sort of 15 to 25, right? In every city, there's a huge catchment area, 15 to 25. From 18 onwards, they can vote, right? But and they are probably predominantly the largest users of some of the facilities in every city that you go to, be it from recreation, sports clubs. The people are pretty much at the bottom of every job ladder. They're the ones trying to start out. They're the ones trying to achieve things. They are the ones with the least experience in life, right? In terms of, if you're 18, it's unlikely that you've got a mortgage. It's unlikely that you've financed a car. It's unlikely that you're the manager of your own company. It's unlikely you've been bankrupt. Do you know what I mean? There's divorced. Yeah. There's all of these things. So everything coming to you is a first. And you offer a very unique perspective in you can't approach anything with bitterness or cynicism. You can only think, do you know what? That hasn't happened to me yet. So what would that be like? And how would I have to deal with that? And there's a perspective that you offer.
Yeah. I mean, actually, going back to what you were saying about, you can't understand my issues. Although, obviously, I think there can definitely be empathy there. But,
there definitely
on
be empathy.
The other hand is that I have no idea. A big part of local, city council is planning applications. I've never had to make a planning app. I mean, I told you this on the phone. I've never had to make a planning application. If I'm honest, it's not my number one concern. Planning application, But that's the case. People, older people in the council, they will have been able to make that. They have that perspective, and that way they're best suited to make those decisions. Just as you might say that, because I'm facing the same issues, challenges that young people are. I'm perhaps best placed to actually try and come up with solutions and talk to people my age.
Well, it's always. It doesn't matter how well versed people are or how well intentioned they are. If a certain section of the society is, for whatever reason, excluded from the decision-making process, it can never be fair. Now, that's not any area's fault if people who are 20 are not running and campaigning to become their local councillors. But without some form of representation on those boards, it can't be all inclusive. It can't all be fair.
Yeah.
Just by definition. And the problem with that is you will come across people who would genuinely support something that could do very good, very well for younger people. But there isn't a younger person there who would voice that opinion or that. Yeah. So you end up, like I said to you earlier, when I asked you about the masks and COVID, because I'm always trying to be wary of my echo chamber.
Yeah.
Well, so interestingly with planning, right, the main concerns with planning will be, does it fit in with the current situation? You know, or are you looking for an outlandish extension on your house? But actually, there's 20 houses in your street and 15 of them already have conservatories. So, yeah, you can have your conservatory. For the person that owns that house, it's all about value and creating living space. You know, but when it comes to, like, when you mentioned nightclubs, if you're a retired person, a nightclub isn't a priority to you. You know, it's like, so it's very easy to vote against a nightclub. It's potentially, and you can come up with 100 arguments about why you shouldn't have a nightclub, from litter to noise to police presence to vandalism to people urinating in the street, etc., etc., etc. Right? More drugs, more crime, everything. Right? And they're all valid. But when there's 20 people sitting on the board with the same opinion, because they all feel the same, and they're all over 45, 65, whatever, you're not going to get that nightclub passed.
Yeah.
Right. But if you've got
I hope I won't be, you know, make my career around lobbying for another nightclub in Salisbury.
But you just, you know, but it's the same. It applies to festivals.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Festivals, licenses. It's nobody has. You have a unique perspective that nobody else can offer, no matter how well they try or how well intentioned they are. And that's, I think, the bit is, I think it's important for anyone listening to understand is, I'm not suggesting that other councillors are not well intentioned and don't want the best for their areas. I'm just saying, if you don't have a unique perspective, then you just don't have it, and then that means your local councillors are lacking something.
No, no, I definitely agree with you. I mean, one of the people I'm standing with, Jo King, she's actually very nice. She is actually quite keen on providing facilities for young people as well. She works with local church groups around Bishopdown. Bishopdown, and they tend to put on, you know, a lot of, you know, these groups. And she actually put forward an idea of making Salisbury a city of music, which is fascinating, you know. Yeah. And I mean, you know, I remember before the pandemic, there used to be so many music events outside the Guildhall and stuff. But one of the ideas that was put forward was having, you know, a permanent stage, and I think that's fantastic. You know, that, you know, you can put on these community events in Salisbury, but at the same time, like, a lot of young people like me, you know, they'll be moving on to do jobs, universities, apprenticeships, and they might even be leaving Salisbury, and it's that kind of you know, almost that liminal phase of adolescence and adulthood. That is, I suppose, I'm more concerned with.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. And that's a great representation on the local council, because you're in a prime position to be able to give advice, a prime position to understand what that feels like, what that means. You know, because it's potentially the most important phase of someone's life, because although in a sense, and by the way, I could be completely wrong, so just correct me at any time, right? But in a sense, school years are quite protective, because you're pretty much within an institution that everybody understands that's quite well protected. And even though you have to go through, like, from childhood into puberty and stuff, you already understand the rules and structures. It's all there, it's all in place. And you just kind of get bigger as you go along, you know.
Yeah.
And the things you're interested in change, you know. And your friends turn up every day. So there's very little demands on you in terms of surviving and having to make your own decisions. But as soon as you leave school or leave college and you get into workplaces, your life becomes very diverse, and the decisions you make directly impact how tomorrow's going to turn out and how next month turns out and next week, you know, next year. and you move into phases where actually you stop living at home and you start moving in with partners, boyfriends, girlfriends. Some people have kids, you know, some people get great jobs, some people go down the route of education. And then like you have, you're coming to the end of that, and then you've got to find a job. And you come into an environment where there's stress and anxiety on a level that you've never had to deal with before. It's new. Just because of literally, this is your age. These are the choices you made up to here. Oh, by the way, we're just going to unravel this little section for you. You've never been able to deal with it before. And people like me will say, look, don't worry, it all works out eventually. Do you know what I mean? Because we're not sitting there in your position. We've already done all of that. We've already made our ton of mistakes and learnt our big basket of wisdom. It's great, you know, but it came from a whole load of fuck-ups. Do you know what I mean? And then there was some near scrapes and some close encounters. It's like, thank God for that. I missed that one. Do you know what I mean? Or the guy next to me took that tumble.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why a lot of people my age have found the pandemic particularly hard, because those kind of structures you were talking about have been completely removed, you know, in an instant. And
but it's true, because sorry, I didn't want to cut you off there. A lot of my friends were furloughed. So I work in healthcare, so I was busier than ever. And so the pandemic had almost zero impact on me because I was working nearly every day. So I was out every day, shopping for clients, getting medication for clients, driving around on empty roads. So it was like I was never stuck in a traffic jam. It was brilliant. I loved it, right? So it had, in terms of, okay, I didn't get to see friends, but I'm working with people. I haven't lost any interaction with people face to face. And in terms of that, it had very little impact on me. Friends of mine who were furloughed, who had kids, they loved it. Some of them were working from home. Some of them weren't working at all. And for the first time in their lives, got to hang out with their kids every day. Do you know what I mean? They were like, this is brilliant. They got all their DIY done. They got all their garden projects done. They went out for walks with the kids every day. Life was good. Their partners were happy, you know. And honestly, it wasn't the same for all of them, but a large majority of my friends who were furloughed or didn't have to go to work have enjoyed the pandemic and were really reluctant to go back to work. And one of my friends, he's one of my closest friends, he's down in Somerset, you know, and we had the beauty of things like FaceTime, like you and I are now. And he was just like, he loved it. He got all the arts and crafts out, learned how to paste everything from princesses to dragons and painting. And with his kids, he said he'd never have had to do that. And somebody was paying his wages. He said, yeah, it's great. You know, he started digging his allotment, everything. He had a great time during lockdown. And that's, you know, so it's different for everybody.
Yeah, but then, you know, obviously then there's people my age where people are getting new jobs. They might have been anticipating to move out.
Yeah.
You know, to go to their place of work, but then they're told, no, it's going to be online. They're still stuck with their parents, but they're, you know, entering that new phase of getting a job or going to university. And it almost doesn't feel real at times because nothing's really changed. You know, your surroundings haven't changed, and you know, you're not. Although you're expected to do these things, which are now, you know, would be expected of someone who is independent. You're also not independent because you're still living with your parents. You know, they're still, you know, maybe giving you rules in the house. They're still providing for you.
No, it's true, because if you
it's
don't,
difficult. You know?
Yeah, because if you're suddenly a student and you're now online from your bedroom, relying on the internet connection, that's not the same as turning up at university and meeting new people, discovering who's who, what's what, meeting new teachers, where for the first time in your life, you're out of view of parents and you actually get to make your own decisions. You get to make and it's different because, as everybody knows at school, the friends you have at school is because you're all put in the same classroom together. You know, well, there's a new bunch of people from university and you're all going to have different interests from different areas, studying different things. And you could end up in the same house as them, the same halls as them, the same classes as them, or you bump into them in a student bar. And for the first time, you get an emergence of kind of new people, new cultures, new opinions, just everything. And that in itself gives you a learning curve for independence and discovering who you are and who you want to be. And from there, like you say, if you, the same as you get a new job, there's a little bit that is about turning up to a building and walking in and saying, hi, I'm Ewan, I'm starting today. And you have to get to know people. You have to get to know who's the boss, who's the boss's pet, who the managers are, who's the person you don't go drinking with on a Friday lunchtime. Do you know what I mean? There's all these little things and kind of like office politics and stuff, which is part of the growing phase. And when you, like you say, and when you go to work, you become yourself. Your colleagues don't see you in the same way that your parents do. Your colleagues have different expectations on you based on what the role is, and you become independent in that. And it's very strange. And I do remember the first time, like I was in my early 20s and I was working, and it was like, somebody in the office or in the workshop or something came in and was asking me for an opinion, and they were the same age as my dad, because my dad would never have spoken to me with that same level of respect. There was no way we were on equal playing terms. It just didn't happen. And suddenly you're cast it, and you actually end up going out on a Friday night with this guy and having a drink and a curry. And it turns out he's the same age as your parents. But to him, you're his workmate. You're not, and he has children the same age as you, and he treats you differently to how he'd treat his own children, because he's looking at me as an adult who works with him. My age is irrelevant. And and like you're saying, is you can't do that if you're still sitting at home, but you're supposed to be at work, but you're working remotely. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, what more can I say on that?
Yeah, no, but it's a really good point, because I'd never have thought of that. And again, which comes back to why I do think you're uniquely qualified to represent a certain part of Salisbury. Yeah. So how are you going about your campaigning?
I mean, at the moment, we can only really deliver leaflets. However, the leaflet for our area for City Council hasn't been created yet. Still, to be honest, I'm still not 100% on when it's actually going to come out. But until then, really, it's, I suppose, kind of like informal engagements like this. Talking to you, or really taking my dog just around the area, and kind of like, maybe using her as a bargaining tool to start a conversation. I mean, I've been on a few leaflet rounds with the guy who's standing for Wiltshire Council, Charles McGrath, who is actually standing for City Council as well in the same area. I mean, this is the thing, because I only joined at the start of this year. I've never electioneered or canvassed before, so it's all very new to me. I'll be honest, going out and trying to talk to people just out on the street is one of the most, I've never been so nervous in doing it, but so there's this point where I'd kind of observe Charles. I'd stand back and like let he'd be like, I'll take this one. So he'd go up to someone and just say, oh, hi, good morning. And they, this is the thing, like people are most people make up their minds before they've even met you. So they're either going to say, hi, how are you? Yes, I'll take a leaflet, or they'll just say no. I was lucky in that when it was my turn, after watching Charles, I then went up to someone and said, hi, my friend Charles is running for Wiltshire Council. Would you be interested in this leaflet? And they said yes. Thankfully, so I was given a bit of courage off of that. Hopefully, the same thing will happen when I go around. But I mean, this is like I do posts on Facebook, but at the moment because of COVID, I can't go around knocking on people's doors and
Yeah.
you know,
A good
trying
way.
to debate with them and stuff.
Yeah, no, a good way forward. If you wanted some advice, so I don't want to be
Oh no,
disrespectful,
definitely.
is when you're trying to cold hit somebody, be
Mm,
honest up front.
yeah.
Don't just say, literally, good morning. I don't want to waste your time, but I would like you to take a leaflet. Do you have 2 minutes? Because you've told them exactly what you want from them straight away.
Yeah, yeah.
And because what annoys people is being suckered in. Do
Mm.
you? It's just like literally, hi, I'm running for local council. Do you have 2 minutes to take a leaflet? And you've told
I
them
mean that.
exactly.
Yeah.
They've told them straight
I,
away and not wasted a minute of their life.
I think I did say I said hi. My friend is running for
Yeah,
Wiltshire Council. Here's a leaflet. No, I definitely. I think I couldn't think of anything, especially when I get calls. You get cold callers and they
yeah.
say, "Hi, how are you?
Hmm.
Good day." And it's a bit odd. I actually going back to I have rung a couple of people, and I mean this is how I met Amanda. I was just we have a list of all like the members of the party in the local area, and I was just going through calling them like and I just start like, hello,
Yeah,
um is this David? Hi, my name's Ewan Mortimer. I'm just calling because I've been selected as a local candidate for city council elections. I just want to hear if you had any um, concerns in the local area, if you had any questions for me, and that's how.
yeah,
And actually, I had a few I'd say excellent discussions really because, like I said, um, I've never really been involved in local politics before, so getting to hear what people's concerns were. And actually, surprisingly, a lot of them were similar to mine. I mean, there's this area on Milford Mill Road which constantly floods. And actually, I think my suspension in my car was it was damaged because of it. So now I'm very passionately, on the
but that's
side of the residents
yeah,
to
yeah.
get it
But that's a really
fixed.
good point, though, isn't it? Because learning things like that from the local residents, it's potentially an in for a conversation. Because if somebody says, well, I'm not sure about local politics, and you say, well, one of the things we're really concerned about is the flooding down there, and what are we going to get done about that?
Yeah, well, I think, mate, going back to right at the beginning where you said, when did you decide to run for local council? I think it was when my car suspension broke.
But that's the best example of local issues, local problems. I need to sort this out. I need to be a part of this.
I mean, now that I've heard it, I can't go out in the city and not, not notice things that I want to fix. Like, you go through the center, or like one of the one-way side streets in Salisbury, and the amount of potholes that are there.
Yeah,
And I think to myself, well, this is not great on my car. It's not going to be great on everyone else's car either. Someone should stand up and try and fix this.
but they are relatable issues because if you lose a tire to something like that, especially in
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of
times
money.
now, that's exactly it. It's a lot of money, and that affects everybody across the ages. It doesn't matter,
Mm.
and it doesn't matter how deep your pockets are. Expensive is expensive.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What do your friends think about this?
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I told my uni friends. I can't remember what they said. I think they just said, "Oh, cool."
Oh, what?
I mean, um, I think it's more my friends from Salisbury. They were like, "Oh, what the hell, Tory?"
Yeah, yes.
Um,
Because when you said conservative at the beginning, I was just like, I was waiting for the point when you'd bring that up. Because
well,
by the
yeah.
way, I'm not party political. I'm not. And one of my biggest bugbears with people, stop voting for
Mm,
parties, vote for your
yeah,
MP.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, on local politics, like I guarantee you, were I to stand for Labour or the Conservatives, I would probably be standing for the exact same things on the local council.
That's why I say to people, you should actually vote. If you're going to vote, vote for the person, not the party.
Mm,
I wish people would disengage from, I'm voting, whether it be Labour, Green, Lib Dems, Conservative, regardless of what they do, because
yeah.
you can't get accountability from politicians that way. What you get is
Mm,
politicians, and this is human nature, who are hungry for survival,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
they know they will go. And in my experience of politics, there isn't much difference between the parties, but with the end result, they're just. Do you know what I mean? They all champion whatever they believe is going to get them votes.
Yeah.
I've seen many a party manifesto over general elections over the years. They start off saying one thing, realise that's not popular, and then don't do it. I mean, look, the last general election, regardless of people's feelings on it, all the parties except Boris Johnson voted for some form of negotiation with the EU or remain. Boris Johnson, we're leaving. Brexit is leaving, and leave means leave. What do you think about crime and figures? If you vote for me, you're getting Brexit. What do you think about the NHS? If you vote for me, I'm delivering Brexit. Biggest landslide, a demolition of Labour in its history. Because he only talked about one thing, what he thought people wanted. And it was a gamble. Whether people like it or not, it paid off, because it turned out 2/3 of the country wanted it. And
Yeah.
for the first time ever, I mean, people don't talk about the fact Tony Blair's old constituency lost its seat to the Conservatives. It's never been Conservative in its entire history. But for the first time, people voted for what they wanted. And I wish people would do that all the time. Not worry about whether it's Labour or it's Conservative. Get involved with your local councils, get involved with your local MPs, and say, this is what I want. And then, because I hate party politics, just
Yeah.
because it becomes about survival. And I don't think it should matter what badge you wear, what tie you wear. What I need is somebody that's supported my community. And, but I find it interesting that your friends from uni were like, yeah, fair play, well done. That's cool. And Salisbury were like, Tories, wanker. Especially seeing it's the history. If they knew the history of Salisbury, they'd know it's always been Conservative.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it is interesting that you talk about party politics and that really they're no different.
Different in
I mean
delivery
it.
and outcome.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, I think for me it's almost a benefit in some ways because I mean you look at say America where things are extremely divided, and I can't help but feel almost grateful that I can at least I can well at times I can support what a Labour candidate. I mean, like take Claire Moody, who was the MEP Labour MEP for the Southwest up
Mm.
until 2019, I think. Um, she's standing for city council, um, and honestly, I hope she gets it because
Yeah,
someone with the experience of an MEP on city council is going to be extremely valuable. Even if she doesn't agree with perhaps if we disagree on a couple of issues, it's having that experience there will be extremely beneficial. Um, so yeah, I think that it's good that you can we don't I mean things might change. You never know how far they change and people might disagree. But I think at least in this country you can find common ground with most people and most things.
I don't think this country is as divisive as the media would like you to believe it is.
Mm,
Is the There is a lot of money to be made within the media and within think tanks to create divide. You know, um, there is. I'll put it this way now: if you removed a lot of money from a lot of these campaigns, you'd be amazed how they disappeared, because people aren't following it for their passion; they're following it for the wages, and by that I mean, it in itself has become an income. Do you know what I mean? If we can, and it was actually, you know, just a simple. You'll understand this study in the classics and history. Rome was based on divide and conquer, and that's not how people think it is. What Romans were very good at doing was actually asking you if you wanted to join forces, and if they could get enough clans to join forces, they weren't worried about the ones that didn't, and that was divide and conquer. They split communities so they could conquer the entire community. But the Romans were actually, what they were effective at, really, really effective at, was working with people. Right? And building up big enough forces in that area that they could oppose anybody that went against them. But they didn't. Go on.
No, it's just very interesting because I don't want to go on a big tangent, but my most recent essay on Roman history was actually on this process of Romanization and getting basically creating Romans in the local communities. And a big part of it is what is that, you know, a big debate is, was Romanization a process that came from Rome, you know, from like, you know, the Senate and I suppose like, you know, the emperors, or was it a process that began in the provinces, in the local elites, wanting to solidify their power over their own population and creating ties with Rome? So you get people like, you know, King Herod in Jerusalem, who actually built a lot of architecture and you know, a lot of his temples and cities were very similar to the Roman style, and you know, that kind of Romanizing aspect. And you also get similar cases in Britain, you know, in Bath and stuff, where maybe perhaps local kings were adapting to Roman rule to gain more influence and power in their local area.
Yeah.
So no, it's just interesting that you bring that up.
Yeah, and that's actually how the Romans did it. You know, that they were kind of for all of their reputation for their armies, they were very much a mercantile government as well. It was based on trade and merchandise, and let's, you know, these are our merchants, these are our products, you know, let's integrate into your markets and your communities. And it's the battles were with the communities that didn't want to do that. But by that time, you know, they might have taken over most of southern England.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, and that's where you know, it was the Romans that created that divide and conquer. But it actually comes from, we want to join forces with you, and if you don't, well, then we'll divide your community and conquer you. But the rest of the community, like you say, the ones that are trying to gain power and align themselves with the Romans, well, then before you know it, if you've got a structure that's evolved around sort of like an area that's evolved around 10 clans, 6 of them get pally with the Romans, the Romans aren't bothered about the other 4. And whether they like it or not, they will fall into line, but maybe with a small skirmish. And then, well, we'll just remove that leader and put in a leader that wants us. You know? And so, yeah, going back to what we were saying, I don't think the country is as divided as the media would like us to believe. I think one of the things is that, and this has always been the same, all of these companies are always trying to have some form of revenue, and that's shock, scandal, headlines, it sells.
Yeah.
So how are you reaching out to friends in Salisbury to get them to vote for you, those that can?
No, because they don't actually live in the ward, so they can't vote for me. But I have a group of three friends, and I'll probably get a couple of more who have at least promised to be like, you know, my campaign team. You know, so I'm hoping that, you know, with the rule of 6, we'll be able to go out and deliver a lot of leaflets when I finally have them.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, they've at least promised me that much, that they'll support me even if they don't support the party.
So see, because this is the thing, you see, is if there's 2 messages I'd love to get across today. One is vote for Ewan. Okay, first and foremost, vote Ewan. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
But the second one is stop with the parties. Vote for the person. Do you know what I mean? Listen to what you've got to say and why that's important, and then decide. Do you know what I mean? And either make the correct decision or live with the guilt of the wrong decision. Okay, but it's because, like you say, it's this. I have friends, and I'd never vote Labour, I'd never vote Conservative, and I just like it's different for me because I've never had that affiliation to anyone. It's like I either like what you've got to say and agree with them, or I don't. You know, and I've always been fortunate. I feel I'm fortunate because that's how I've always been able to see the world. Is I don't, you know, but
I think for me, the only thing with parties, now maybe I slightly disagree on, my friend and I, who actually lives in Salisbury, and said to me, "Oh, Tory," he was
yeah,
he was one of those. No, but so this is the thing, we actually agree on a lot. We kind of spent ages, almost all summer, I suppose, deconstructing our beliefs, and I suppose why I decided to join the Conservatives is because as I broke it down, I decided that for me, and maybe this will change with time. I think that the individual, kind of like individual liberty is the most important, kind of unit in society,
yeah,
in that,
I agree.
yeah.
That's why I said
And
at the beginning I can't believe we're where we are. I didn't think people would give up their liberties so easily.
yeah, well, this is the difference between me and him is that I like he's almost he would refuse to make any kind of compromise in that sense. He's very much a total libertarian, in that he believes there shouldn't be any government regulation of anything.
But he supports
Whereas I
Labour.
Well, no, he supports neither.
Okay,
No, no, no. Whereas I would at least, I I would at least concede that there is, there are moments for pragmatism
the
and for, at least
the problem with complete
compromise.
libertarianism
Mm.
is it's the belief comes from the basis that everyone will behave well and that everyone will
Yeah,
behave in the best interest of the community. That isn't human nature, and just history tells us without some form of government rule and some form of law enforcement, whether that be military or police, whichever, or a combination of both, like we have in this country, you can't keep certain factors under control because 95%, 99% of the community are not going to be the issue. But
yeah.
if complete libertarianism, where we don't have anything, well, how do you stop those that will take what they want, won't pay their taxes, and then like, well, we're going to have to regulate for that? Okay, right. So now we're back to government.
Yeah,
You know, but
exactly. And obviously, like during a pandemic, again, it's, well, you need a government to enforce some kind of order to protect, the health of everyone.
yeah,
Because if you don't, then the individual is at risk because they may catch the disease. And it's that's the thing. It's accepting these pragmatic approaches, which is why why he doesn't stand for local, doesn't decide to stand with a party and stand in local, local politics, whereas I do, I
because well,
suppose.
if you look at any country that doesn't have a recognized government,
Mm.
it's controlled by either a dictator or a warlord. And the difference between the two is whether you call them a warlord or a dictator. But the practice of both is the same.
Yeah,
So, and that's where libertarianism will eventually take you. Somebody will rise to power and control everything, because that's what happens.
well, it's like that thing that you go so far. Well, like you go if you libertarianism is almost just another word for anarchism.
Yeah, it is.
Almost.
It is. It's
You
just it's the ideal over the practice.
Hmm.
Libertarianism. It sounds great and it sounds great in gesture, but at its roots, in practice it just becomes anarchy, because you're somewhere you have to have a set of rules or guidelines that you expect everyone to adhere to.
Yeah.
Well, then how do you enforce it? We're back to local government and police forces.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, exactly. You elect a police and crime commissioner who will promise more police, in the area.
and somebody I have spoken to actually on the Wiltshire Crime and Police Commissioner is Mike Rees. He is an independent.
I think you did you speak to
I
Amanda about?
No, I found him
Oh, okay.
on Facebook. He just appeared. Somebody put him on a post, and I just like, oh. So I just sent him a message and said, "Oh, would you like to talk?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'd love to." And he's an ex-police officer. He lives up in Swindon. Not Swindon. He's near Swindon. He was a police officer in Swindon. I'm trying to think where he is. But yeah, he because he's campaigning. One of his campaigns is he wants the police station in Salisbury reinstated.
Oh yeah, because it became
It came an academy.
UTC,
Yeah,
didn't it? Yeah.
he's not necessarily. You don't have to give him back that police station, but where's the money gone for the police station that was closed down? There was supposed to be a new police station built. It was never supposed to be at Bourne Hill. That was supposed to be a temporary measure, but they've now kind of moved officers into Bourne Hill, and it's become a more permanent thing. And it's like, no, Salisbury needs to have its own police station. It's a city, for crying out loud, that doesn't actually have a police station.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually interesting you bring this up. I think I was in a meeting with the other candidates, and someone brought this up. They're speaking to kind of ex-police officers, and I think one of the things that came up was why there weren't holding cells in, I think, at Bourne Hill. I mean, honestly, I can't.
There aren't
this
any.
is the thing.
Yeah.
I'm too young to know the ins and outs, and I'm not a police officer. But I think one of the other candidates did actually make the point that if you want holding cells, you then, like, I think the cost of them would be something like maybe like 70 or like 7. I can't remember the exact figure. It's a big figure, but it basically came down to the fact that it's not the cost of building the cells; it's hiring people who would have to stay in that cell, look over them, and care for their well-being, and then it becomes an issue of not do you want holding cells. It becomes an issue of, do you want police officers on the street or do you want them in the police station? And then it becomes difficult.
This is where it becomes politics, isn't it? Because every police officer knows there's a nationwide scheme called the Appropriate Adult Scheme. I know that because I used to be one.
Yeah.
And volunteer members of the public like myself.
An appropriate adult you used to be.
I used to be an appropriate adult. Yep. And I'd go to police stations and make sure that young offenders, people with mental health, were taken care of properly. And I'd sit down in interviews with them and make sure they weren't screwed over by the police officer or didn't get bad representation from their solicitors. Now, this was the early noughties, so things have changed a little bit since then, I imagine. But that's not a reason not to have... Because what they don't talk about is every time you get arrested, you have to be taken to Melksham. And then when you're released, you have to find your own way home. If somebody's arrested for drink driving, they have at least an hour before they're going to be breathalyzed on a calibrated machine. And I know this because I've spoken to police officers, that they know if you're just above a certain limit, there's no point taking you to Melksham. It's easier to just let you go. Because by the time you get there, they know you're going to be too sober. You're going to sober up and you'll pass the drink.
Yeah. There's not going to be any point.
So it's... The fact of the matter is we're a city and we don't have a police station. And when you arrest somebody, that police officer then has to take them to Chippenham or Melksham, I think it is, Trowbridge or Melksham. So they're then pretty much, that's an hour each way, and they're going to be there for a couple of hours. So the argument, would you want them on the streets or do you want them on the
They're
town.
not actually going to be on the streets, are they?
No, because they're going to be driving to and from.
Yeah.
It's an hour. There's 2 hours lost just there for processing before you even start processing and paperwork. There's 2 hours lost just there driving backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
It's somebody spent the money that was put aside for the police station. As I understand it, it would have been ring fenced when they shut the police station down. But it's
I know that it's been ring fenced, but
so where's the money? But it could be, to be fair.
Know.
No, it is, to be fair. It could be that, look, the pandemic. Look, the problem. Before we get critical, we have to take into consideration a couple of things that happened locally. Nationally and globally, we had the pandemic. Okay, and then locally, we had the Novichok crisis.
Yeah,
and that was all at the same time as this was happening with the police. The police were temporarily moved into Bourne Hill, and then Novichok happened. And so the reason I'm saying that is because I don't like criticising when I'm not a part of the people that making the decisions, and two, I'm aware of things happened that nationally and locally that would have put pressure on that, and perhaps is actually a very valid reason to why things didn't happen.
I mean, I definitely agree. I mean, it's also, a lot of these things. Obviously, I'm not. A lot of the funding for these things will come from, they'll come from central government through Wiltshire Council, and it becomes an issue of, you have two things that you need to spend money on. Which would you rather have? And it's, obviously, I'm still yet to see this stuff in person. But it's difficult making these decisions.
It is.
I can imagine. Yeah.
It's incredibly difficult because everybody. I put it to you now. If you put the right sort of, I can't think of a good example to my head. But say just you got this ring fence set of money that can either go on the police station or it can go on an amenity, which is really fun and attractive. Who's going to vote for a police station?
Exactly, yeah.
And that's kind of the danger you're in. But just before we round up, how do people... So what area are you campaigning for?
Milford. Well, it's the ward is called Milford, but it's Bishop Down, St Mark's, and Milford, because two wards were joined, I think, in a boundary review.
Yeah.
So it's actually, rather than two people representing St Mark's and Bishop Down, there's going to be three people representing St Mark's, Bishop Down, and Milford.
Right. Okay. So you're not in the Laverstock. That doesn't come under Laverstock, or was Laverstock part of that?
No, but it's right next to Laverstock. It's because Laverstock isn't actually part of the city.
Yeah, of course.
It's a point of pride. That I don't think I was ever offered the opportunity to stand in for Laverstock. This is the thing. Salisbury it's great, but it's also it's small. I know every part of Salisbury, and to get into the centre of town, I go through Milford all the time, and it's my area as much as Laverstock is.
Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree. So, and how do people find you?
How do people find me?
Yeah, so for people who want to vote for you, want to campaign for you,
or people on social media, or
all of those
in the world.
Yeah. I'm not suggesting anybody camps outside his house. So yeah, no addresses. But yeah, if people want to, is there a website? Is it just Facebook? Is it Instagram?
I have a Facebook and Instagram and Twitter actually. So my Facebook page is just Mortimer for Milford. So like my last name.
Yeah.
Social media is, not social media. Instagram is the same.
Mortimer.
I'm just going to make sure I didn't spell it Yeah, it's Mortimer underscore for underscore Milford. Um, it's actually linked on my Facebook page, and then my Twitter is just Ewan Mortimer.
Okay, let me just while I
Although I'm
do.
not as active on that one.
Mortimer. Say Mortimer underscore for
Yeah,
Milford. Is it for Milford?
yeah. So
Yeah.
underscore where a space would be.
Okay. Right. Followed you. So I followed you on Instagram.
Fantastic.
So
Yeah, no, that's just popped up.
So I'll share that, and I'll find you on Facebook, and I'll put all the links in. And
Fantastic.
is there anything before we go that you'd like to say to people, other than vote for Ewan?
Well, I mean, if they're in the ward, it would be great if they could vote for me. I suppose actually, more on a practical note, I just to remember that the deadline for postal voting is the 20th of April, I think. I
The
think that's
20th of
correct.
April.
Yeah. I'll just double check.
And I will make sure I share all of that and put it on Facebook. Tag as many people as I know in those areas.
That would be fantastic. I can actually see on the website where the deadline for postal votes is.
Well, we'll
But I
just
just know that.
there is a deadline
I
for
mean, yeah,
postal votes.
there is a deadline, yeah.
So, so ladies and gentlemen, get your postal votes in, and make sure you vote for Ewan.
Or vote with your conscience,
Yeah.
Vote for who you truly believe in.
So, already a politician with a difference. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was
I hope
Ewan
so.
Mortimer. It's been good talking.
Thank
If
you,
you liked what
David.
he said and you're voting
It's been good.
in the local by-elections for Salisbury, check him out. Give him a vote. Get in touch. Ask him some questions. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to answer them all. Take care. Thank you for listening.